of the domestic satellites in the 1980s made TV accessible across the whole of Australia. This has now sparked off a furious debate on the role and potential of television in the lives of Aboriginal people, the continent's first inhabitants.
There's so much magic in that satellite, there's so much you could do, and it has never been used for what it's been set up for.
No one should stop people from indigenous cultures, or from any other culture for that matter, to have access to the most modern innovations or most modern inventions.
There is a finite resource called satellite time, and it must be used in a responsible way.
Pian baku penyengat nanga, cingum nyaben, cici benjurangku, cici benjurangku, langu nyakola, nyaku, pian baku karaman jelbe.
Television has had a very destructive effect on our society, Aboriginal society. All our children do is turn on the screen and see a negative image of what they should be like.
You don't want tokenism where you've got white television filmmakers pretending to represent the interests and the needs on Aboriginal matters.
The instrument we have in our hands is, I think, is the most powerful instrument that Aboriginal people have ever been handed in terms of maintaining Aboriginal culture and languages, ever.
The last 200 years have seen Aboriginal communities, culture and languages devastated by European invasion. Aboriginal people now form only 2% of Australia's population of 17 million. About half of them live in coastal cities, whilst the remaining half pursue a more traditional lifestyle in remote communities. Both in the cities and the bush, Aboriginal people are finding a wide range of uses for television to reclaim their culture and assert their identity.
Community control, local control is extremely important, it's fundamental. And to actually facilitate real local control and real access by people, you have to have some kind of management or some kind of instrumentation that allow that to happen.
Every morning when I wake up, I turn to Aiken FM and listen. Rock and roll, reggae, country western.
CAMA started in 1980 so that we could put radio broadcasts into the local stations. From there it's been go ever since.
Wadandari, Santa Teresa and Mugana, in Clearing Kamala, Nanwanarangarwan Kama Radio, Aiken FM, and
When we first started, there wasn't any radio programs especially done by Aboriginal people for Aboriginal people. Historically, doing the first thing was having Aboriginal language programs on the local commercial station for half an hour a week. Throughout Central Australia and Northern Australia, and certainly in the Western Desert areas where we broadcast, usually people's first language is an Aboriginal language, and broadcasting in languages sort of overrides the complication of English. It became obvious at a very early stage that people wanted videos. And our first attempt with videos was a magazine once a month. We used to send them out to all the communities and they used to play them to death until the colours was gone out of them.
Yeah, the original idea was to basically produce television programming here in Alice Springs and have it rebroadcast through the local ABC transmitter. The federal government announced, before actually CAMA was in existence, that there would be a national satellite. One of the main motivations was actually to get access to the satellite or to utilise the satellite in some way that would be relevant and purposeful to Aboriginal communities in the remote areas of Australia. We had an arrangement with the ABC whereby we would produce a program here every week called Autopia, and the program was sent down to Sydney after it was completed, and it was actually broadcast from Sydney at about 11:30, 12 at night.
White bureaucrats, get off our bus now!
But I think they could see that they were opening up a sort of a Pandora's box, really. But if they allowed CARMA to continue with this, that every other Aboriginal media organisation in the country would want to access ABC TV transmitters. We're only after limited access for radio and television services. Unfortunately, the powers that were at the time in federal government didn't really take much notice of small users, including ourselves, so that in the end, the only thing we could actually do was to apply for the full commercial television licence that was made available. Immediately when we announced that we were going to go for the licence, we got an enormous amount of support from the Aboriginal communities in the Northern Territory and in South Australia, because most people at that point felt that unrestricted commercial TV going into Aboriginal communities would have a detrimental effect on language, culture and all that. The Broadcasting Tribunal felt that we had a very, very good case for programming. They said that both applicants, Channel 8 and CARMA, qualified for the licence. But on balance, and with particular regard to CARMA's proposals for Aboriginal programming, we won the licence. Anyway, yeah, we got on with the business of setting up the station, and it was set up in less than 12 months. It was on air.
The idea was at that time, and the conditions for Impage was that it would have a large Aboriginal input into it.
What I have seen was very much anything that you see on commercial networks anywhere in Australia.
Salivate Century and neighbours, you know, that's European, you know.
Perhaps we may have gone another way, but I mean, as I say, you can't always get what you want.
Because it can't deliver in the context of what Kellogg's wants to see as a cost per thousand.
At least what we've done is we've got ABC to do Aboriginal program.
CARMA and Impage have set the agenda a bit and set, I think, a pretty challenging example for all of us.
The ABC, Australia's only national government-funded television broadcaster, has an Aboriginal program unit based in Sydney.
Right, so she comes out, someone's got a queue up there.
We started the Aboriginal program unit because the ABC, as Australia's national broadcaster, should have Aboriginal people making Aboriginal programs.
The ABC's Aboriginal production unit was set up in 1988. They currently produce the Blackout series, comprising 10 half-hour programs per year.
Did you watch the last program of this month?
Yes, I did.
Oh, right. What did you think of it?
I thought it was pretty good.
Not too far away.
It's the Hawkesbury Bridge. Do you remember we used to go up and down there a lot?
Mommy, that's the train, you know.
Yes, look at us going over the Hawkesbury River.
I was born in Darwin. I live in Gosford now, which is the land of the Darkinjung people. But a lot of people don't realise that Australia is a land of many different countries and that we've hundreds of different languages. And that's how Aboriginal people who live in cities still identify themselves today.
In my way.
It's not newsworthy to show things that are positive in Aboriginal affairs. And that's why I think Blackheart's marvellous, because you are getting very differing viewpoints from different people.
Because these days you see mass media and it's just usually the negative aspects that are shown, you know?
There's two sides of a story, and unfortunately they never do a full story, the same as with the Land Rights March that we were all in. You saw them pushing down Parliament House, the fence. I mean, it's an inanimate object. But what you didn't see was an old man who did get across the fence and was manhandled and thrown down the steps. And that's when the fence went, because there's that respect with our own culture, that we respect our elders. I would like to see Blackout itself a little bit more current affairs type, more topical, you know, as well.
The SBS, another government-funded station targeted primarily towards non-English speaking Australians, ran 38 weekly Aboriginal magazine programs in 1989.
At the beginning of the show, we had to take it fairly easy because it was a huge step. It was the first, in prime time, current affairs hosted by two Aboriginal people.
Good evening, I'm Michael Johnson.
And I'm Rhoda Roberts. Welcome to First in Line. If we'd put on fairly political issues at the very beginning of the show, they would have gone, oh, I don't need to be preached to, thank you, or I don't want to know this. So at first we just showed really positive images and really soft stories until we built up an audience, and then slowly we started introducing more controversial issues into the show.
We didn't really take First in Line off. We have halted the production of First in Line until we find sources of further funding. We just didn't have any money to continue First in Line.
I think they could have continued on with the First in Line program if they really wanted to. And there is a need for an Aboriginal program on SBS on a continuous basis, and there's also a need for an Aboriginal program on the ABC on a continuous basis.
If they're going to ABC or SBS are going to do Aboriginal programming, then they've got to get experienced Aboriginal programmers in there to do it.
We see the natives gathering in corroboree to ward off the invaders, just as they then did.
Bringing on trainees all the time who are unskilled, and to build up their skills is all well and good, but there are a lot of people, not a lot, there are a handful of people who are around who have the skills and the qualifications. There could be a genuine Aboriginal unit in there with Aboriginal producers and executive producers running those units.
I think that you've got to recognise what we've done in very few short years is build up a very good skills base of Aboriginal television producers. The last series of Blackout was exceptionally good. I thought that the series before that was very good. So every time we make a series, it gets better and better.
It's still like you've got to run to a non-Aboriginal person to make decisions about Aboriginal people. And ethically that's wrong. And also it's not as effective.
We want to move ultimately that Aboriginal people are responsible for all Aboriginal programming. And that means all staffing positions, and we should get there as soon as we possibly can.
We're being very realistic, and we know that the Aboriginal person who takes a position of an executive producer or whatever for our unit has got to be someone who not only knows us, but they have to be somebody who can know the ABC.
They maintain their control over Aboriginal programming. Whereas if they had experienced Aboriginal programmers being in charge of the programs at SBS and ABC, then they would probably find the programs much better than they have up until this date, because they're both crap as far as I'm concerned.
Not too far away. We need to be more in contact with more community-based filmmakers or, artists or whatever, to give us, sort of like more of an influence within mainstream. Because one of these days, most Australian people will get to see the sort of programs that Aboriginal people have complete control over. and then I'll be able to really see what an Aboriginal perspective is. At this moment, we know we're compromising so that they can swallow what we have to say.
Certainly commercial television will not, in prime time, ever contemplate running programs about Aboriginal issues. Now, the interesting thing is, one of the bonuses, because of our preparedness to do it, is Blackout, the Aboriginal television series, actually was a commercial ratings winner. Now, perhaps if we chalk up more successes like that, we'll change the conventional wisdom in the commercial media, but it's certainly, there's no sign of it yet.
Back in Alice Springs, the station set up by Karma is finding it difficult to fulfil its Aboriginal purpose.
There's not enough Aboriginal input into the Imparge.
Good morning, Imparge Television. Cassie speaking.
There's no Aboriginal news service, no Aboriginal magazine service that can stand up as a television program.
Jana iri di kanyanja. Kalau palo jana nya aduh ma waljang. Kukanya di kejangku. Cungor yang kolal ngaji nih nyara balla. Pulka ala ngaji nih nyara balla. Ngana na banyak TV ingka kanya di kejangku. Tidur jarang.
At the hearing, we said we were going to do 8 hours a week, but there's certainly no way in the world that we could possibly do that with the finances that we are able to generate from the service.
Imparge has goes about the business of buying programming in the same way as any other regional television station buys programming. However, it takes into account the special nature of its service area, and one very important aspect of that is the substantial Aboriginal component of the audience. So, without there wishing to be a desire of making a severe division between the way that we would program for the Aboriginal community as opposed to the way that we program for the rest of the community, the fact is that we do make a distinction because of the special nature of that 25% of our audience.
No. Can you just go over there, please, Cecil? We're doing something for work. All right? You're next.
I'm next?
Yeah. All right, you want to go and sit down over there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But funds are extremely limited in making programming specific to the needs of Aboriginal people.
And just come back with those two from the council. Over the last few months, it hasn't been really focusing on Aboriginal issues, so the news has sort of changed a lot since last year, whereas it was just mainly an Aboriginal news service. We have to cater for so many different people throughout our viewing area that we tend to bring in a mixture. But like if there is a big Aboriginal issue sort of in town that we can get to and take shots of, we'll focus on that. But other than that, it's sort of a mixture at the moment, yeah.
My main consideration from the outset is to satisfy the needs of the footprint, which is vast. And what I've been given as a mandate is to integrate all the cultural requirements, both of the Europeans from Central Australia, predominantly Alice Springs, and the community. And at the moment we're achieving a good mix, so that all interest groups, all factions, all aspects of community life are covered as equally from an editorial point of view as we possibly can.
Good evening. And also tonight, a call for the reactivation of the conservation plan for the Western Macdonnell Ranges. But firstly...
When you have a situation where you can buy the top-rating television program in Australia for a very small amount of money, all the time on that program, to any advertiser, when you compare that to making a half-hour television program with Aboriginal languages, costing $10,000 to $20,000, and no one buys advertising on it, you can see that we have a difficult time actually trying to turn the advertising dollar over, and at the same time meeting our social obligations.
We'll take the example of Kellogg's cornflakes. they will buy the programs that rate the highest for obvious reasons. They get better value for it. The reality is that Nanapa does not rate highly. By and large, it is true that the local advertisers don't buy time in Nanapa, but they're probably doing it for the same reason, that their view is that not many people view it.
Well, Nganabanungana is a very unique program. You know, some of the things that we collect the materials from, like Dreamtimes and things, you don't see it on other programs. Even in the white television, like, you'll have Pustaka man riding, but he's nowhere near where we can find Pustaka. He thinks and knows it by, he thinks he's got the experience to go and find Pustaka, but he still needs Aboriginal people to teach him, to show him how to find them.
I remember one old Aboriginal bloke, one time I asked him about these things. I said, can you eat them? And he said, nah, rubbish food. Camel tucker, he said.
You never know what he could be eating. You know, the programs like Blackout, they just right straight because they've been produced by English-speaking Aboriginal people. With us, we got two cultures and we're trying to combine them, like trying to please the wide audience as well as the Aboriginal, keeping the Aboriginal way still strong in it.
It is the only Aboriginal program in Australia which is made in Aboriginal language. None of the other RCTS stations, which also have a responsibility to provide services to Aboriginal people specifically, they all use the cheap magazine-style interviews. You go out there, you shoot, you provide a voiceover. It's usually a spokesperson on behalf of the community, and it's a magazine. It's very cheap, simple type of programming. In fact, the ABC and the SBS have done programming in that form. Nanapa is the only program in which a language speaker leads a team of a lot of them Aboriginal people in their own right, going out into the bush. They go to a community, they meld with that community. If somebody doesn't want to speak to them that morning or that day, then they have to tolerate that, which makes that program extremely expensive and very difficult to make.
You might go out on a Nganapa shoot that's been pre-planned about 3 weeks before that, and you front up and you find out that someone's passed away, so you have to leave the community. Can't go out there because they having sorry business. And then another time you might go out there and they having ceremony, initiation ceremonies. Well, the young fellas go and get initiated into men, so women can't go there. Blokes can't. If you're not an initiated man, you can't go in there.
Aboriginals, they have their own way of doing things. You can't rush them. They just take their time. That's the way they live.
Yeah.
There's no you have to do this in a hurry, you have to do that. You have to learn to sit there and wait until they're ready. When they're ready, then you know it's time to move on or whatever. Yeah.
Angali. Anjali. Aknaya. Yaya. Morak. Kak. Indari. People don't realize that things are happening around the schools. It's like maintaining our culture and language. Got to keep it strong, otherwise it's going to die out within another 10, 20 years' time. Bilingual schools, they teach in both ways. And it's very important for the little ones to start off reading and writing their own language instead of in English like we had to. We grew up in English way and we weren't allowed to talk in a language. We speak, our language behind the teacher's back, but if she heard us, she said, you're not supposed to say this, you're not supposed to say that. You're not allowed to talk in your language, you've got to speak English all the time. When we bring materials back from doing our bush trips, we'll sit in here and look at it, look at the whole story and work out where we are going to cut it.
Yes, there is some deadlines and stuff.
Then we'll sit down and translate it. It's up to standard from there, then it goes to Mpaja when it's all finished. The people know it comes on Thursday nights. Every time they hear that music comes on, the kids will come in from the playground. They say, Ngana is on, you know, that they sit down and watch. Aboriginal stories, like we tell them about the caterpillar, the Yabarinya and Yalgas, the Koyana, they got the paintings on them. That's reality, you know? A nursery rhyme, that's nothing. That's just like fairy floss.
Yuendamu is a town of 1,500 inhabitants situated on lands belonging to the Warlpiri people, where the local media association is producing a series of educational videos in the Warlpiri language.
We'd had TV for about a year or 2 years, and I thought it would be nice for Warlpiri children to have their own kind of show, because there are lots of English programs for kids on the TV. They like those children's shows and they count along with them, but everything is in English and the children are all from another culture, and I think it makes children want to be like those children. Whereas if they have their own show, then all the children on it are their own people, and then they want to be like themselves. And I think that's much healthier, and I think they have lovely lifestyle here anyway.
There was no script at all. Just a list of material and kind of areas that we know that we want to cover, you know, and it just evolves. And someone arrive in the community out of the blue and they're an expert in making puppets. So you say, hey, look, it'd be great to have a few puppets. So they kind of quickly make these puppets out of old bits of tyre. We just do things that are funny, you know, make kids laugh, that we can throw in between all the serious kind of counting and all the literacy, numeracy stuff and the stories. We just have kind of funny things too to make it all interesting. And when we're filming, the kids just love it, and they're really in there, and they know what to do. They know what to do, and they kind of, I'll say, you know, look up like that, and they kind of, you'll go, ah. And we made this little sound booth, and they all jump into this sound booth when we need them, and they look at the screen and they make the noises and you know, and pop things on and make car noises and and all this kind of carry on. And so they're all really, it's very much a homegrown thing. I saw these kids out on the oval playing golf one day with the teacher who must have brought his clubs out from town or somewhere. And I just thought, it'd be a really neat thing to do, this golfing. It'd just be a funny thing. We like to throw in these kind of what we call magics. And our star of the show, Gordon, he can do all these magic tricks and jump on top of buildings and send sparks out his fingers and appear and disappear. So, and he has all these kind of supernatural powers. And even the music, we have the local band here and local musicians.
I think they all like to imagine themselves in a rock and roll band.
But the kids really like it, and the people really like the Aryan community. The kids like counting in their own language.
Cinda, Cirama, Mondurba, Mondo, Mondo Wala, Dale Dale.
I just write down a list of words that start with that sound, and I hand that list to David and Murray and Joe and whoever it is, and I say, go and take pictures of these. I'm not even there usually. They pick out the things they can find handy. Kids like to watch it, and they seem to be willing to watch it lots of times, whereas they're not really willing to watch words and pictures in books that many times and not nearly so interested in it. Lots of kids are still not learning to read, and there's not a great interest in school or a great interest in books. But there is a great interest in media, and there is a lot of interest in, educational programs. So I just think that some of the money that's now being poured into a really European type of education should go more into things that Wallaby children and Aboriginal children do like and do respond to.
Manuana is a real great thing for not only for young people, for old people too. That's for the language, Because some of those kids write in language, which I can't write in language because I never taught that way, We got ABC and Impaja, and plus I have local ones. Mainly they like it local ones. Like they want to hear themselves, they want to look at themselves. Sometimes it's a little bit of jealousy on television when people talk, oh, I should have talked like that. I'm going to talk just next time so that they can listen to me. Good afternoon. Number like Wallaby media and problem with community and health model. And from town from Wallaby Media. Good night.
The Wallaby Media Association has been producing video programs for the last 8 years. Their first video broadcasts were transmitted illegally over a pirate transmitter. Today their news is broadcast daily to the local community. Along with 74 other Aboriginal communities, Yuendumu has its own government-supplied BRAX system. Modelled on the early illegal experiments, BRAX is the Broadcasting and Remote Aboriginal Communities Scheme, which not only enables communities to receive ABC and Impaja off the satellite, but also to substitute them with their own programming.
Well, I think that BRAX certainly is a good idea. The way that I saw them doing it is as being gatekeepers to the media that's coming into their communities and allowing them to switch into the programs that they thought most beneficial to the community, as well as being able to put their own little news service on daily, or what their children were doing at school that day, or what community meetings were happened that day.
Of course, the impetus for all of that started at Yuendumu when Yuendumu decided to set up their illegal broadcasting. And one of the people that was involved in the early stages of that process at Yuendumu was Chris Poulsen. And the way Chris has always described the situation is that he's seen the danger of television from outside being a powerful cultural force that would destroy what was there. So he saw BRAX like a shield. He saw the BRAX was out there like a traditional Aboriginal shield, stopping the spears that were coming from outer space, if you like, from the satellites. And the programs that the community would be making, like they were at Yuendumu, those programs would be the spears going back again from behind the shield. That one there. Go on. Okay, that one? Yep. Okay, now, if you press this one here, VCR over to Impaja now. Press that Impaja button there. Okay. 74 communities were chosen by the government, and 74 communities suddenly had BRAX in their midst. That was a long way from the original idea of the communities themselves choosing it.
None of us other people like other communities don't know how to use it because there was no training for it.
The problem is perhaps that the equipment has gone in without necessarily communities having the sort of experience or media policies in place that we've had here. We, for example, broadcast for a full year before we got a satellite dish ourselves with our own money, and broadcast local program mixed with video footage sent up from Adelaide to get the community used to that concept. And we had 4 hours broadcast a night, of which 1 hour was in Pindara.
Well, there was neither an interest on the behalf of somebody in the community nor any training. The equipment simply sits in a room and is switched onto either the commercial channel or ABC television and left to run. And it's just then a filter, a sponge sucking up what the satellite has to offer and spreading it out around the community.
In those communities, only Europeans use it for themselves, you know, because they haven't got committee members to control it, and they haven't got those elders, you know, tribal elders.
Right from the start, right in 1986 and ever since, we've been saying, well, it's pointless putting a whole lot of shiny equipment in a room and saying that you've established community broadcasting. The core of the process is people and the commitment of the Aboriginal people to the concept and to the activity.
In that BRAC's gear, I have to run around because the government never gave us funding for that, because I have to do it for my own time and for the other community, and they paid me a little bit for doing that. Like Mandalin had problem with BRACs. They thought wire broke down, but that redback spider was sitting on it. So every time they used to watch it, daytime, it used to be blocked up, and nighttime they used to watch it because the spider went out to get a feed.
We get all sorts of funny jobs put out at places like this, but the one job that I'd put above all else is in communication, because communication is so much at the core of communities and Aboriginal culture.
The Warlpiri Media Association is planning to link the BRAC system on the Warlpiri lands using compressed video, a cheap way of sending TV pictures via satellite.
Okay, the communities around the Tanami can talk more directly together so that we can get news to each other easier.
There was a major political meeting that was on an issue that affected all communities, such as this health meeting that we had today. That could also be broadcast right around so that people are not only aware of what's going on in their own community, but they're getting a line on what other people are thinking about it in other communities. And I think that would empower people considerably out in the bush.
Nambo yabo la organization ng kama nambo jo kumda spring yon do nyambo nambo jo nyoro la yon la jaman nambo jo la jaman at kay di nambo la
One of the original concerns was that, okay, this mob out there are going to get bombarded by all the soapies and all the rubbish culture.
I think Aboriginal people have a right to pick and choose of our culture what they want. And I don't see them as necessarily being destructive, because I think people are going to choose from the modern world what they like from it. And they'll keep from their own world what they like of that.
Ernabella is a community on the Pitjantjatjara lands that has become a centre for maintaining traditional culture, strengthening the elders' sacred knowledge and their unique connection to the country.
Ernabella Video Television started as a video project in 1984. Since that time, we've produced over 80 edited programs, and we sell those locally and all over the country. And we're continually adding to that stock. We have hundreds of hours of traditional dance, particularly, and football, all sorts of subject areas in our video library. The committee was originally formed with Ernabella residents only to establish the broadcasting hours and policies. They were all older people, and it's under their direction that we began recording traditional dreaming stories on site.
Satellite ko nakola, lawang ko nakola, arnang ko ngor parengko. No one day arnang ko pita joda. Palo wiro nya, chana mo koringani satellite nya na konji de impa jana nangani, no ya news pangkapan nya ko pai. Pala kuli ni jokorpa.
It was amusing when we first got Impaja Broadcasting, and it was actually a committee member who came racing to me one Monday and said, "Why didn't you broadcast on the weekend? I wanted to watch the football." And I pointed out, well, that was actually your committee's policy. And he said, well, that was all right back then, but now we've got the football and we want to watch it. So it was just like that. Overnight policy changed according to public demand.
Kangayelo min majora program melal bay podinga no elo kadera kabaranga jonany palo kapi balal bay wiya yerida melal bay wiya roma kojonga podo balani palo wiro
sabani yang elo nendrengi no kore warga pal na elo nyinani monona pulbar nendrengu monona wani karin jauh ya rawanya nara war karingi menuna war kanya belum program mau karingi menuna war kau juga nggak perlu war karingi. Sab anak juga mau airun dalam ada ini. Sebenarnya jago cukup banyak. Program menjago. Kaja nanti yang karena nanya pola jangan lakukan, malah jangan mampir jalan ni. Yara, apa yang ada kakak lewat deh, cincin kola kari. Alah apa lagi? Cincin kola kari, cincin kola kari, cukup bambu kota tiga apa karena udah pakai awal ni kan bagus.
Wah, alaji nana nana tanah kulit ni ngawen di mana kalaya pakai ni kalaya yang ku alam ni mono panjangan na adeng nangala jalal deng tanah video yang kamu Mandi aku TV tanya aku in mapanya nyerunya cukur pa nyerunya tanah mandi aku tanah nakula kulinda ala ndao mulapa kurala la werkano nyerunya manusapan tanah manawala.
We enable them to do the same sort of thing that they used to do traditionally, that is to visit sites and to re-empower those sites through performance and to keep them alive as a thing of great cultural significance.
Nang ada murah nang ada kurala na panjang ayo kumunjuk murah palompa ayo kumunjuk curaku ayo kumunjukku Palo jangan apa, area murah. Palo jangan murah ya. Kanganan nak kaca undang bangku, anan nak banyak. cukur penyawala jadinya kayaknya jananya apa jananya nende di aku kata nende kalau kolen dah udah nanya muncul cukur gue kayaknya drama pun betul.
Boleh jawab karamba ala jigoro da peyo ko ala jigoro wari bija ala jigoro wari bija peyo ko wangkara wari bija mun wari nyara ja jero la nyanga anangonga mun la ko wari manja ni min ma chota kapi pede ko ko ala la ko mun balo langoro wari bananga jonani mun la para nyakola para manja na anango iktari ni ko wari
Custodians invited us here to Coroala to record some scenes of the Seven Sisters that we'd recorded with them last year. In fact, last night they sang a song from Aldia that hadn't been sung for many, many years. They got so happy and excited for that they've changed their agenda. They now want us to record this song in daylight, dances to go with it, to take back to Ernabella to broadcast.
Tronco, Eredita, Yondoinga, Olgeana, Oldea. Oh, Kananga, Tronco, Yanga, Eredita, Ordini.
Mula, nangangi monokolini, jamu jana pakal bay, in mana balu macam apa. Mano kal palango anango chutangko kadangko kanyining mane aku hari ko jupanyanta hotin
yang ada jijing mano ngalain gane akan nangor banyak lengkap kalau jangan nyara kalau ada darah wajah ngala kari caka enkain ko Nano Coroala la koto ngora banya para nyara people jaral mun kara monola wer kano Coroala la ngora wirongka monola min ma jodang kacung nyenangi melak nyero nyar kanangi capan di jakulo ar kanangi mono en kangi wating ko min mangko cicing ko lu cungong ka wade jodang ko kandro nengi wiro nyala jero ngana na ngorpang ko kolen en manyara palonya ka jana jarang ko nendeng ko kolen en gang kaya wiro la ro kandro nengi mono men ma joda pakanengi en ma palonya mula palang wiyareng ko lang ngalla pakan
moment is
kuarnya nga TV banyak palo nya jono kangana na nyanganye wenking ba nyanganye ngorpang sultang kala gitu wiro nyanganye ka wiro la jero nganye wadi nyara ko jarang kandon jala wiro nyanganye nyakola pukula nyen ma wiro nyakola
That's okay.